listeners. This is Dave Wilson, who in the attic of his parents' home discovered a tin dating from the Great War. Inside was an account of the life and death of a young soldier from Liverpool.
I found the tin after my parents had moved into a rented house in Ivernia Road in Liverpool, and it was pure curiosity that I was sent up into the loft to have a look what was actually there, if anything had been left by anybody previously. And there was only the tin and 3 tin helmets from the First World War in the loft, and absolutely nothing else. In the box there were photographs of a gentleman who was killed in the First World War. There were papers relating to his call-up into the army, various items to do with the regiment that he was in, photographs of the training camp, his pass-out papers, and then there were letters, very sad letters, and then the notification of death, that he had actually been killed. And finally there was a photograph from the French Red Cross to do with the actual grave in France.
Dear Mother and Dad, I am very sorry indeed to hear Ernie has been badly wounded. I hope he will pull through all right, as you say. I am thankful for having so far come through safe. Out here we do not worry over ourselves, but we cannot forget the anxiety you must be having. So don't forget, keep smiling. Please give my kind regards to all.
It's my painful duty to inform you that a report has this day been received from the War Office notifying the death of number 22667, Private J.F. Davis, 20th Liverpool Regiment, which occurred at some place in Germany on the 31st of July 1916.
It was very sad reading the documents, the letters in particular that were written by himself, and then letters that were written by his friends to his parents. It was very complimentary about the man himself.
Dear Mr. and Mrs. Davis, it was with the deepest sorrow that I heard yesterday from home the sad news that your dear Jack had passed away in hospital in Germany. Now I know that whatever I say in terms of condolence must appear but a paltry expression of sympathy compared with the sorrow and grief which must be yours at the present time. Yet I can assure you of this, no one feels his loss greater than I do.
The feeling of sadness that somebody, a family member, should actually have this tin, and we didn't know who to get in touch with. I would like to know who the man was, and more history about his family at that time, and are there any relatives still alive? Are there any people still living in Liverpool? It would be very interesting.
All that we had to go on was the name of the soldier, John Francis Davis, who served with the 20th Battalion of the King's Regiment. This led us to Colonel Amlow, the regimental spokesman.
We're very excited about what we've just seen in the tin which has been discovered, because that now gives us what I think is probably the final evidence about what happened to John Davis. We might have guessed that he was wounded on the day of the attack on the 30th of July on the Western Front and left in no man's land between the position that the British had to withdraw back to and the German fortified positions at Guillemont. Davis was picked up by the Germans and was taken straight to a German field hospital, a Feld lazaret, and sadly will have died within 24 hours. He was then buried locally, and finally we know that his grave, along with a number of others, was exhumed and concentrated in a British War Graves Commission cemetery at Peronne. When I looked at the tin, I was delighted to see that we're able to tell the story of one man of the 20th Battalion of the King's Liverpool Regiment from the time of his recruitment to finally his death. We have, for example, a French silk. Now, a silk was a silk postcard on which the badge of the regiment was embroidered. We've seen photographs of Grantham, where he trained just before he moved to Larkhill in France, and we've seen the official notification of the fact that he was picked up by the Germans, treated in their hospital and died. So I think that that tin contains some very important artifacts indeed.
Copies of the contents of the tin have already been added to the archive of the King's Regiment. But we were still no nearer finding the relatives of John Francis Davies, fatally wounded at Peronne in the Somme. We turned to a newspaper for help and made an appeal that took us to Northrop in North Wales, where we found the nephew of John Davies, who he knows as Uncle Jack. Les and Audrey Davis were naturally keen to know more about the contents of the long-forgotten tin.
Well, now that we've got it, it's a very moving moment. I think when the family all gather together and see what has happened and what we've missed, I think we'll be very happy to do so. And at the same time, I think most of them again will be quite sad. Yeah. Because none of us knew him. This is the only thing we've got about Uncle Jack. He was my father's brother. My dad was the youngest of 6 brothers. We know very little about John in the army. The only thing that I knew was from the grave in Anfield Cemetery, where it says he was killed in 1916 and is buried in Peronne, France. That's my grandfather, that's my grandmother, and that's my dad.
Yeah.
And that's Jack. I have no idea how the tin came to be in the loft, because I didn't know it was there. I lived in Ivernia Road from 1939 to 1971. I can only assume Grandma Davis would have said to my dad, "Look after this for me, Frank." And my dad most probably did. And then he must have put it in the loft and not told anybody. Trouble was, he died very suddenly, had a heart attack and died without any warning. Unbelievable is just about the right word, that it should have survived and that it should have been found. I mean, I've got 1 or 2 bits of information. I've got his medal. I've got his small book. We've got nothing else apart from that. So this will fill in a whole gap in the story of the family.
Delighted with the find, the Davises had one final message for Dave Wilson.
Thank you for taking the trouble to find us. It would have been so easy for the tin to be thrown out. We didn't know it existed. My father never said anything about it. And if he hadn't have done this, we wouldn't have even known about it. So there's a great surprise element in it. But to Mr. Wilson, there's only one word to say, and that is thank you very, very much for doing what you did.
Do you have a family heirloom you've always wanted to know more about? Or a mystery object you can't bring yourself to throw away? Maybe we can help. You can call us on 0870 900 2333. You can write to us at Revealing Secrets, PO Box 701, Manchester M3 3RW. And if you have the technology, email us at info@revealing-secrets.tv. And you can also visit our Revealing Secrets website at www.channel4.com/next step. Still to come on Revealing Secrets, the Montrose memories that inspired a notable old boy, and the religious images found beneath floorboards in the northeast. Coming up, the sacred slides from beside the Teesside. But now to Montrose on the east coast of Scotland for a story of artistic discovery. A small autograph book found in the nearby village of Etzel led us to an acclaimed academy and the story of a famous sculptor.
Grandpa had been clearing out one of his walk-in cupboards up in his home in Etzel, and he came across this old the old autograph album, and so Grandpa sent it down to me because he felt I'd be interested in having a look at it and seeing what he'd discovered. I thought it was charming. It was really lovely. The handwriting especially, it was beautiful handwriting. Especially the ink drawings are really lovely, really good standard.
One or two names, I thought, oh yes, this is definitely Montrose, it can't be anywhere else.
But it was the surnames rather than the actual people you recognised,
yes,
wasn't
just
it?
the surnames as being names of Montrose families.
But one name they didn't recognise was that of the book's owner, Christina Milne.
So it would be very interesting to know who Christina Milne was herself.
I would quite like to know, a long shot, but some of the people that had made entries.
The word Academy under Christina's name in the front of the book led us to a prestigious local school, the Montrose Academy. History teacher Alistair Puller said the school has always had an excellent reputation.
Montrose Academy was founded in 1815 with the familiar golden dome. The time Christina Milne came along, Montrose Academy was one of the 11 higher, it says here in this prospectus, higher class public schools of Scotland. Their subjects would have included such things as the humanities, drawing, science, cookery. There was also physical education which could take part in the swimming pool. Montrose Grammar School was reflected the community in which Christina was born, which was a wealthy commercial community trading with all sorts of places. We managed to trace Chrissy Milne through the Under the Dome magazine, which these magazines date back to the 19th century. And although they don't mention pupils' names, they do mention alumni names. We managed to find that she had gone to Brooklyn, USA.
We've been able to establish that Christina did indeed find a new life in America. She married, had 2 children, and moved to the West Coast before dying in California. But what about the book's contributors? One of the Academy's art teachers explained that drawing pictures and sketches in autograph books was quite common at the turn of the century.
One of the interesting things about this book is round about the late 19th, early 20th century, people didn't have autograph books as such. What they tended to do is to have a book where people drew or sketched in. And this was, in this book, is a reflection of the quality of work of that time. There's a lot of naive work, but there's also some very strong artwork.
Strong artwork usually indicates a strong art teacher, and in this case, a significant contributor to Christina's book.
Going back 100 years, Lena Goody, one of the teachers at Montrose Academy, taught William Lamb, a well-known sculptor. William Lamb's work actually shows strong influences of Lena Goody, as you can see it in Christina Milne's sketchbook.
William Lamb is one of Scotland's great 20th century artists, and it seems our autograph book provides an excellent example of the style which so influenced his work. A major exhibition marking the 50th anniversary of Lamb's death was staged by Montrose Museum.
If you look at the early sketches that William Lamb made and look at Lena Gowdy's work, you can actually see there's a definite similarity. He took his cue, if you like, from her work. Even their handwriting, if you look at the letters, it's very similar handwriting. She was the first person to really spot that he had a talent to be encouraged. And it must have been quite hard for a young boy at that age, you know, before the First World War here in Montrose, people just didn't go in and be artists. It wasn't really the done thing. But she saw that he had the wherewithal to go ahead and do something with his life as an artist. All through his life, he corresponded with Lena Gowdy, and I think she gave him a lot of confidence to go on, and that correspondence lasted right throughout his life. William Lamb became very well known, and so well known that the royal family actually commissioned him to do 3 royal heads, and that would be the present Queen Mother, Princess Elizabeth, who's now the Queen, and Princess Margaret, and she was then known as Princess Margaret Rose. We see from his letters to Lena Gowdy, when he went down to sculpt the royal family, as a kind of warm-up session in Piccadilly, they'd hired this big room, and Princess Elizabeth, who's now the Queen, was putting on gramophone records just to sort of get them relaxed. And then they played games, an amazing game called Steeplechase, which involved William Lamb being one of the obstacles, and the Duke being an obstacle, and Princess Elizabeth and Margaret Rose jumping all over him. It must have been quite a relaxed affair. It's quite incredible.
So, from a chance find during a routine clear-out, we have learned the story behind a young schoolgirl who emigrated to a new life in America and found a crucial link to an eminent Scottish artist with royal connections.
How on earth did you find all that out? Good gracious me. We really wouldn't have known quite where to start.
That's actually quite special that it's just been uncovered just at the right time, as you say, the 50-year anniversary. And the timing of it is actually quite something, I think. It's quite fortuitous.
Yes.
There was one final request from the Montrose Museum.
Now that this wonderful book has come to light, the autograph book that has Lena Gowdie's work in it, we are really hoping that Mrs. Smedley would lend that to the museum for this exhibition. The book's so important because what it shows is Lena Gowdie's work while she was teaching William Lamb.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
Goodness.
That'd be really nice if they could do that. Yeah, that's great. Sort of his inspiration. It's wonderful.
Now we make a pilgrimage to Middlesbrough to commune with Billy Price and the religious images found beneath the floorboards.
What I've got here, some slides, some lantern slides, what I think they are anyway. The wife's grandfather and his friend found them under some floorboards over Stockton for quite a few years back, and they were passed out and she's got them now. I know little bits and not much, but I had no idea what they were used for. Probably some home viewing when the family have come round to tell you something.
Well, the magic lantern goes way back to the mid-17th century, and people started to put these little boxes with lamps in and lenses on the front and realised that they could actually project images. Of course, originally the images were painted on glass, and the lantern was generally hidden, so people didn't know where the image was coming from, hence the term magic.
I think it's a family who've gone on the stage, and also there's some holiday snaps of the same family in the Alps, I think, somewhere. The ones I've looked at on the play are like all biblical things, you know, Jesus and Mary, Moses, I think I've seen.
Most of the slides that turn up tend to be pretty much the same sort of thing, which is late 19th century mass-produced slides. These are slightly more interesting in that what we're looking at here is slides that were used initially in the 1890s and then the 1920s. The second batch of slides are photographic scenes representing Bible stories actually acted out by actors in front of a backcloth and then coloured in by hand. These are known as life model slides, but they're not that common in a religious context. I think the slides that we're looking at were used for quite large public presentations. Interestingly, the Passion Play, from which possibly these pictures belong, was one of the popular presentations at that time.
The knowledge that lederhosen weren't exactly popular in 1920s England, coupled with the signature of a Johann Schwenk found in one of the slides, suggested to us they were of Germanic origin. This led us on a trail to the village of Oberammergau in South Germany, famed for its epic renditions of the Passion Plays, performed every decade since 1633. Closer to home, we found a leading authority on the subject, the Reverend Bob Jackson.
The play itself is a passion play and really covers 8 days from Palm Sunday to Easter Day. A magnificent spectacle. The costumes are absolutely beautiful. These slides are particularly interesting, the fact that they exist at all, because they're obviously quite old. The ones of the play, I would say, must have been properly posed and officially taken. Many of the scenes are, of course, very easy to identify what they are, bearing in mind that these probably come from the 1920s. There's a splendid one here of Jesus with St. John, with his head on Christ's shoulder. The play has been going for many, many years, and certain names appear right down the centuries. Names like Zwink. There were 2, even 3 or 4, I think, in the play this time. be interesting for the people, I think, in Oberhammer to see some of these, because, of course, they would recognise grandfather or grandmother or whoever it is. I would think this is, in some ways, a mixture that has been compiled, probably for giving talks. But how they came to be in Middlesbrough is anybody's guess, I should say.
On the box itself, there's a Sunderland mark on the box. So whether the box was made at Sunderland or not, or what do you say, I just don't know.
The box is labelled Wilkinson, and Wilkinson was a fairly well-known slide colourist in the Sunderland area in the 1890s, and it's entirely possible that these slides were painted by him on request, or actually bought in by the Wilkinson Company, coloured and then resold.
However the Wilkinson slides got to the northeast, whether as tools for a lecture or holy holiday memories, they provide an enduring depiction of German cultures in the 1920s, and hopefully now answers to Billy's questions.
I found the mystery out of the object what I have. It's not there gathering dust. I know exactly where they're from, what they were for, the makers of the box. Actually, I thought it came from a place like Austria or Switzerland or somewhere like that, but to find it come from Germany and the actual town itself, I think it's really spot on, spot on.
If we've inspired you to look into your old bits of family bric-a-brac, why not give us a call now on 0870 900 2333. Calls will be charged at 8p a minute. Or drop us an email at info@revealing-secrets.tv. You can write to us at PO Box 701 Manchester M3 3RW. And you can also visit our Revealing Secrets website at www.channel4.com/next step. On the next Revealing Secrets, what stories lie behind a grisly postcard and this striking painting owned by Twickenham's Rugby Museum? And we unearth the dark secret of this ancient stone flower trough.
Revealing Secrets continues tomorrow at the same time, 3:30. Next today, from the new to a trusted old friend, William G. Stewart fires the questions in 15 to 1.